Today's reading is from John 17:21. That they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us. Pyonghwagyong, Book 3, The Mission of Religion and Achieving God's Ideal, Section 4, America and Religious Freedom. God loves America. America's greatness does not lie in her vast resources or in her tremendous prosperity. It lies in the very spirit upon which this nation was founded. That is the spirit of one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. However, God's will is not just one nation under God. It is one world under God. We are all brothers and sisters, one human family. When we all recognize God as our Father, this ideal can become a reality. The greatest confrontation in the world today is not the United States versus the Soviet Union, capitalism versus socialism, or even democracy versus communism. It is faith in God versus the denial of God. The communist world, based on atheism, has failed to fulfill the human dream. The free world, on the other hand, has become materialistic and has forgotten God, and it is helpless in the face of a grave world crisis. The world is dark with confusion. A new vision must emerge, a new worldview centered on God. I am teaching that worldview, which is based on God's heart of love. I call it Godism. I proclaim that this ideal will provide a solution to the world's problems. Aju.
Okay, now is the time to read this Poban.
Good morning, everyone. So, when you saw my name, you probably thought, oh, it's summer's coming, and Carol's going to come, and she's going to speak about South America and Central America again. But I'm not going to. However, I am going to say that there are still openings for the LEDA project. There are still openings for the youth project in Honduras. All you folks listen carefully. And also for the adult project in LEDA. And advertisement finished. I'll get on with the sermon. So, recently I took part in the American Leadership Conference here at the Clifton Family Church. And Tom McDevitt, in one of his commentaries, suggested that everybody read a particular book. And the book is called If You Can Keep It, The Forgotten Promise of American Liberty. Now, actually, the definition of liberty is basically freedom. If I were to rename that book, I would say, If You Can Keep It, The Forgotten Promise of American Freedom. How important freedom is in really living out the American dream. So I followed Tom's suggestion, and I read the book, and then I did something that I never do, or I normally don't do, and that is I read the book a second time. That's to say how good, how important this book is for everyone to read it, because actually the writer of the book seems to convey the history of America from God's viewpoint, which we tend not to even think about anymore, exactly how God must have been preparing this country. So I took my inspiration from this book in order to give this sermon today. The title of my sermon is God's Love plus Freedom is the Winning Combination. So this might be a little bit of a strange sermon. I mean, it's kind of a lot of disjointed parts. So I'm calling it my kanji sermon. Kanji is, Japanese have to correct me if I'm wrong, is a particular kind of writing where you take pictograms and you put those together, right? And then when you have the whole bunch of pictures together, then you come with an understanding of something. For example, you take the pictogram for electricity and the pictogram for car, and you put it together and you get train, right? Okay, so I'm going to put together a lot of different elements today, and I hope by the end of the sermon that you will have a meaningful message, okay? So I'd like to begin, first of all, with a video. And this video was, actually my son had shown it to me and I was just so inspired by it. The script is written by Andrew Love, and then it was animated by a young unificationist, young adult unificationist, Alan Becker. Who's seen that video? Probably all of you guys have, right? Anybody seen it? Really good video. So I'd like to show that now.
Before cities and casinos and cell phones, before farms and ships and marketplaces, before tribes and dancing and hunting, before dinosaurs, sea creatures, and even before the earth. Before all of that, before everything, was love. Love isn't something that you or I created. It's something that feeds us, that surrounds us, that keeps us moving forward. And since love came first, then everything was built by that love and for the sake of enjoying that love. Though the planet Earth took billions of years to form, it was finally ready to become the dwelling place for humans. Humans were a different breed of creature from the outset, because we could adapt, we could create, and most importantly, we operated solely for love. But something poisoned the hearts of humans very early on, and we gradually forgot how to love as we were meant to. From that moment on, we started on a path separate from the love that we were designed to embody. Since that time, love has been looking for a place to call home like an orphan in search of parents. The hearts of humans closed their doors and instead craved after things that brought destruction rather than life. Mighty empires were built by taking selfishly instead of by giving, leaving countless souls at the mercy of man-made rules rather than the universal principles of love. Kingdoms were established by mighty men and fell apart just as quickly because they were built without the love which is fundamental for human existence. Yet, throughout the ages, those who were brave enough to stand up in the name of love and care for their fellow humans were actually pushing forward the evolution of love. Brave men and women helped to advance our collective ability as humanity to love and to return to our natural state of being. On one hand, humans have advanced in leaps and bounds in the past century, far beyond the imagination of even the biggest dreamers. They went from horses to helicopters, from chalkboards and candles to smartphones. It seems as though all the questions in the world now have answers. Yet in spite of all the progress that we've made to resolve our external problems, love still doesn't have a place, a culture, a country to call home. Love knows that it is closer than ever to finding its home and ending its quest once and for all. It is waiting for champions to emerge in its name who are willing to live, breathe, and act in oneness with love. Love is waiting for champions, for warriors who are willing to do whatever it takes to give love the permanent home it has been seeking after. Love knows that the time is now. Love will become the dominant force in this world, enveloping hatred and selfishness, and it is becoming a time of great division because people are choosing sides. So which side will you be on? Will you seek after personal gain, or will your eyes be on a higher purpose? Are you going to stand up for love and give with a humble heart? Will your heart be a home for love in this time? Will you let your love genius shine through? The answer is entirely up to you.
Actually will be my testimony. I don't think that I ever actually gave my testimony here at this pulpit. Does anybody remember? Anyway, I'm going to give you a little piece of it anyway, not the whole thing. But so you know, I studied, a lot of you know I studied art in college. From the years when I was 6 years old, and as I grew up, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew that I wanted to become an artist. And I used to draw and sculpt and craft, and I was constantly busy doing these things, but I never really questioned, you know, anything, the philosophical aspect of art. You know, what is good art? But, you know, once you get into college, that's one of the big things that, the big question for college art students is, what is good art? And actually, before I go on with the testimony, I looked up, I Googled last night, what is good art? And I got this article popped up, and it said, it was from artbusiness.com, and the article was called, What is Good Art? Answers from Art Pros, or art professionals. And I'm gonna just read off a couple of the answers that were given as to what is good art. And this is basically the same stuff that I was hearing back in the 1970s. One of them said, good art is, by the way, this article got 1,300 likes. The moment and the memory, it has to be something that engages you, okay? Clear intention, unwavering dedication, patience, perseverance, self-awareness, and the drive to create for yourself and no one else. Art that is unique in conception and well executed. The last one I'm going to read is quality, quality, quality. This is the mysterious and subjective key to good art. So, and when I met the unification movement, I had a stunning experience, which I'm going to share with you, that woke me up to the actual answer to this question, what makes good art? And before giving the testimony, I will give you my answer. Good art is the reflection of a good heart. Actually, if you read in Unification Thought, that is the answer. Good art is a reflection of the goodness within a person. So, you see, I was taking a life drawing class, and I was together with this particular guy named Roger. And Roger was an excellent artist. He had a really, really nice line that he used, very rhythmic. He was a very dynamic person in the way that he expressed himself. And I worked together with him in the same studio. We had the same model. We had the same furniture, tables, chairs, the same same fabric was there and still life materials, vases and flowers and all kinds of stuff like that. We used the same stuff. And anyway, you know, in an art school, rather than doing comprehensive exams, you have to prepare an art show at the end of the year with your best work. And that is like your comprehensive exam. So I attended Roger's art show, his exhibit at the end of the year. And he had 12 drawings in the show. And as I looked at the drawings, you know, there was the same model that we used, there was the fabric, you know, there were the still life materials, there was the chair, there was the table, I saw it all. But in the drawings that he created, for example, one drawing, a woman was standing there, and it was a nude, and she had a bag over her head, you know, and there were the flowers on the table. And then in another one of them, she was sitting in a chair, and she had this striped fabric wrapped around her head, covering her head completely. And on her breast and on her genitals, there was this violent scribbling. And every single one of these 12 drawings had the same scribbling on the nude model. And I thought to myself, my God, he's raped the woman. He's depicted it through his drawing, a rape and a hate for this woman. And as I was standing in the middle of the room looking at this stuff, just like really blown away, the professor came up to me and he said, do you like his work? I said, no, I don't. And then he asked, is it the subject matter or is it the drawing technique? And I'm thinking to myself, well, no, his technique is beautiful. These were beautifully rendered drawings, very, very emotional drawings. And was it the material? No, it was the same nude model that I used. It was the same furniture. It was the same fabric. It was the same everything. But what was different was the heart behind the expression of his work. So I realized at that moment that good art comes from a good person. It is the reflection of your goodness. Bad art comes from people who harbor evil feelings and express evil feelings. So that was the reason I joined the church, because I realized that I could not be a good artist unless I became a good person. And there was no other way to do that for me except to join the church, because I knew that that was the place where I could change my heart to be able to be an expression of God's love. And then no matter what I do, whether it's art or whether I take care of a house or children or anything that I do, that will determine whether what I've done is good. The core or the heart of the matter is what we believe, what kind of heart of love we have. So anyway, I'm still here, right, for that. Thank you. So that's my second piece of kanji. Moving on. If we take that concept to yet another level, then we could ask the question, what makes a nation good or even great? Actually, in the reading this morning that Kuni read, it says, from Father's words, America's greatness does not lie in the vast resources or in her tremendous prosperity. It lies in the very spirit upon which the nation was founded. This is the spirit of one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. And I want to kind of take that apart a little bit. You know, in the past, I've often felt that the greatness of the United States is based on its giving. Sort of the idea that we are very blessed and therefore we should bless the rest of the world. And we do that through things like we give of our resources, or we tend to give to the needy and help, especially the developing nations, especially after a tragedy or something like that. That's what we do. We take care of the world. Or even from another perspective, that means that we're giving all the time to the world, but also we receive from the world. For example, if you look at the poem that's on the Statue of Liberty, it reads, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." So the United States has always been a nation, because it is steeped or rooted in the heart, in God's love. It has always been a nation that gives and also takes in the problems of the rest of the world. That is our basic foundation. I'm not sure if that is as evident, especially to our young people these days, because a lot of things that even we grew up with is not as prominent in its discussion. We don't talk about it so much anymore. We rather see the problems that we have more than the incredible root and foundation of the nation. So, but if we look at what Father said, what Reverend Moon said, he said, it's not just loving others by giving, it's actually why and how we love. So if we look at it again, what he's saying in the passage, he's saying it is incorrect to say God's love lies in the vast resources or in her prosperity. because it's more than that. It's more than that. Our greatness is not in the stuff that we give, but rather in the heart, the why and how that we give. And why is that? Because we give because our Constitution is rooted in expressing God's love as one nation under God. We are united under the idea of God's love. And how do we give? We give by choice, by free will, with liberty. Liberty, the meaning of liberty is freedom. We give with free choice by our vote to do so. I think that oftentimes in the United States, we take these things for granted. You don't even think about it anymore because it's so ingrained in your very being to be rooted in God's love. But this is not necessarily the experience in all nations. Now, I'm not saying other nations are bad or anything like that, or not rooted in God's love, but the American nation is the United States is very, very rooted in that love. I had a friend, actually, who his family was a missionary family from Central America, and one year he came, he was visiting me, and we were in the supermarket, and he saw the checkout line, the self-check line. No? And he said, that wouldn't work in my nation. It wouldn't work in his nation because actually in his nation, when you go into the convenience store, there are bars in the window. And you tell the person behind the counter what you want, and they hand it through the bar, and you pay for it. But you don't even get to touch the thing until you actually paid for it. But in the United States, there is a kind of trust that exists because it is understood. The people understand that this is what we do. This is you have to be honest about it. So without that trust, actually, we're not free to fulfill our potential. Also in driving, when you go for your driver's ed, you learn that to drive, you have to drive defensively. What does that mean? It means that you have to think about the other person all the time. I've been in some countries where they drive defensively, just who could get first as fast as they can. Or in some of the developing nations, you have the situation where there's no law. There's no law to the driving. Or if there is a law, there are no signals or signs. Or maybe there is a signal, but it doesn't work. So nobody pays attention anyway. It's just get where you're going as fast as you can. But, and I think about this sometimes. When you're driving late at night and there's a red light and you stop and you're sitting at the red light and, there's nobody around. There's nobody crossing in front of you. You're sitting there at the red light and you're not going to move. Why? Because we respect the law. That is part of our Christian foundation. We respect the law. Without respect for the law, you really don't have any order. You don't have order in your nation. So we choose to respect the law. If you don't, if you pass through the red light, stop doing that. And also we know that our nation gives. It does give when there's tragedy. The U.S. is always there to give money and aid. Without that sense of good giving, we can never really feel our value as a nation. So one part of our being one nation under God is that we are rooted in love for the other, or we live for the sake of the other. It's a national characteristic. But loving others isn't all there is to it. There is also loving others, and there is self-love, because we take ownership of our nation. We are by the people, we the people. So this is not a nation that belongs to a monarch or belongs to any one leader. It belongs to all of us. So together, we own the nation, and we can feel pride in our nation. But even more so, there's another important part in loving oneself, And this is a quiz because just a couple of weeks ago, our youth pastor, Yasutaka Ozawa, mentioned this very point in his sermon. Does anybody remember what he said? The question is, why is it important to love yourself? Anybody, even you remember what you said? You remember what you said? Anybody remember? Huh? The answer is because if you love yourself, you can forgive yourself and move past your mistakes. Isn't that correct? You move past your mistakes. And this is evident also in American history. Because we're rooted in Christian principle of loving ourselves, even as a nation, we wouldn't be able to forgive our national mistakes and correct them in order to go to a higher standard. So, for example, we recognized the wrong of slavery, and then we overcame that national sin because we, the people, understood that slavery was wrong. So we corrected it to really continue to reflect God's love. That's an incredible, incredible point. Or the fact that we recognize that all people must experience equality in human rights. So Christian love for others is important, and self-love is important as our national root. And this is the part that we talk about, one nation under God. That's what we are. But then I want to talk about also the next part of that. Besides God's love, we have liberty and justice for all, or freedom and justice for all. So I'd like to speak about freedom. My husband wrote a book called Life in Eternity. I'd like to read a little section that he wrote on freedom. It says, God's love is freedom. Giving true love is giving to someone the freedom to be who he or she truly is. An expression more apropos to our current world would be to say that giving true love is the same as liberating someone to become who or she really is, liberating a person from all the negative things that oppress or block them from his or her rightful happiness. And for me to receive true love is the same as me experiencing the freedom to become who I essentially am. And what is that? Who is that? That is, I am a being of love, a son or a daughter of God. I've often wondered, looking at this nation and our history, there's so many things that were invented here in the United States since our inception. So many things, you know? Things that have been invented in the past 200 plus years have been inventions like the telegraph or the phonograph, electricity, and modern pictures. It inspired flight across oceans and transportation with the horseless carriage or the automobile. It invented baseball, football, basketball. It invented jazz, blues, and rock and roll. It created a device that could record what is happening here and show it there. It sent humans into space, and they even landed and walked on the moon. It invented the computer, and it invented the internet, and so much more, so much more. And why has that been so? Why is it that so many inventions came out of this nation? And the reason is because we are endowed with freedom, liberty, and justice for all. We are endowed with freedom. We are free to think, we are free to dream, and we are free to create. If we were not free, we would never be able to fulfill our God-given potential. The exercising of free will is a key difference between human beings and animals, or human beings and robots. In exactly the same way as we, being free, allows us to create, be incredibly creative people. Also, a nation embodying freedom allows the possibility for all of its people to excel and shine in all aspects of culture. Every individual in our nation is equally endowed with the potential to develop as a unique expression of God. We are to become the creators in the likeness of God, or co-creators with God. God has used the United States as an example of the power of freedom rooted in the soil of God's love. One nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. In some nations, strong government or dictatorial rule, institutions of class systems, or rules that impose a certain religious belief stand in the way of allowing the nation's people to become unique expressions of God. Just look at the United States Pledge of Allegiance. Does this nation not have the making of a nation reflecting the love of God? Our pledge alone is evidence of our calling by God to be the city on the hill that shines for the rest of the world, to become people rooted in God's love and by our free will to express God's love. It reads, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." So let me just take that apart very quickly for deeper understanding. A republic, by definition, is a state in which the supreme power is determined by the people, and by the people that they elected. One nation under God. We all know what that means, don't we? Indivisible, can't be divided. We are united in this cause. Liberty has two things, or two meanings. One is free from and free to. We are free from physical restraint. We are free from arbitrary or oppressive control. We are free to do as we please, the positive enjoyment of various social, political, or economic privileges. And we are free to make a choice as to what we do. Justice is the legal or philosophical theory by which fairness or equality is administered. By the way, all of these definitions come from Webster's dictionary. In conclusion, I'd like to conclude this morning by looking at my kanji sermon. Let's look at all the different elements and see if we can, shake them together, right? So I reiterate my points. First, the video points out that God is trying to bring love back to this world. The choice is in our hands. Each one of us make the choice ourselves to be love or to be selfish. Next, my testimony. In order to produce not only good art, but good anything, we must strive to be good persons first. What we produce is a reflection of who we are. Next, Reverend Moon points out that the United States' greatness is not simply based on our external giving, but on the reason or the spirit in which we give. We give in the spirit of God's love, loving others unselfishly and loving ourselves as we strive to be the best that we can. Then, freedom. Freedom is essential in fulfilling our potential as true children of God, or our potential as a nation representing God. And finally, with the reading of our National Pledge of Allegiance, I am confirming the title of my sermon. God's love plus freedom is the winning combination. Thank you.